If you have reached this video, it was not by chance. The Almighty is speaking to you now, and the message is short, direct, and cannot be postponed. A long-awaited surprise is about to happen in your family. Keep these words close because in the next few minutes, you will understand exactly what is being prepared, when it will begin to manifest, and what the Almighty expects you to do before it happens. You wake up tired, even after sleeping the whole night. You feel a weight in your chest when you think about a specific person in your family. Sometimes you cry without knowing why. You pray and you feel that the prayer vanishes into the air, as if it hit a concrete ceiling. You have asked so many times for that son, for that husband, for that wife, for that mother, for that healing, for that reconciliation, that you no longer know what words to use. Perhaps you have stopped asking. Perhaps you have started to settle. Perhaps you have thought that the Almighty has forgotten your home. Take a deep breath, because what comes next is hard to accept, but it needs to sink deep within you. The Lord remembers. The Almighty never forgot. That name you repeat into your pillow, that dream you kept in a locked drawer of your heart, is being set in motion at this very moment in the spiritual realm. A surprise is being prepared for your family, and it comes in God's own time, not yours. But there is a problem, and that is why this video has reached you. Most people miss the blessing that the Almighty is preparing because they do not recognize the signs that precede the surprise. They see the signs, they feel the signs, but they interpret everything wrong. They mistake the dawn for the end of the night. They mistake the final trial for the end of the road. And when the blessing finally arrives, they have already turned their backs, looking the other way, too tired to receive it. If you continue watching, you will not make that mistake. Before revealing what this surprise is, you need to understand three things. First, why the Almighty decided to speak to your family now and not before. Second, what are the signs that confirm that the surprise is already on its way, and why some of them are happening to you exactly this week. Third, what the Almighty expects you to do in silence inside your home so as not to block what is to come. And it is exactly here at this point in the video that I need to tell you something important. It was not you who chose to open this video today. It was this video that was placed on your path in your day at your hour. There is a very specific number of people going through the same spiritual silence as you, waiting for an answer for their family, and the Almighty has raised an exact message for them, and you are one of those people. You realize deep down that you are being led to the right places, finding the right words, feeling things within your chest that you cannot explain out loud. This is not just your imagination. It is the Almighty setting apart those who have spiritual responsibility within the home, those who will be the instrument of protection for their own family in the coming months. That is why I have prepared a powerful digital book for you. It is called How to Know If You Will Be Saved on Judgment Day, and it will show you chapter by chapter what separates those who receive the blessing from those who walk right past it, what the Almighty sees when He looks at your home right now, and how you ensure that your family is on the right side when the truly decisive moment arrives. The link is pinned in the description of this video and also at the top of the comments. Thousands of families have already been touched by this reading, and they write in, telling how peace has returned to their homes, how children who were far away have returned, how husbands and wives have knelt down together again after years of distance. Do not leave it for later. This type of content may be removed at any moment due to time or channel restrictions, and the call is now. If this message has touched you, write Amen below in the comments. The Almighty will read. And from the heart, if you aren't subscribed yet, hit the bell icon because the next word might be the one that changes the rest of your year. Now back to what the Almighty wants you to understand. Why now? Why is this surprise being prepared for your family at this exact moment in your life, and not 10 years ago, when perhaps you were younger, with more stamina and fewer scars? There is something the Bible repeats in an almost uncomfortable way. The Lord remembers, but He does not act in the time that makes sense to us. He acts at the time when the blessing can no longer be mistaken for luck. If the surprise had come 10 years ago, when you still had strength, when you still thought you could handle everything on your own, you would have said it was the result of your effort, your intelligence, your sweat. You would have claimed for yourself what was the Almighty's, and then the blessing would have turned into pride and pride would have pushed you away. The Almighty is too wise to do that to you. He waited. He waited for you to reach a point where you no longer have any human argument, a point where you look at your family's situation and say, deep in your chest, only the Almighty can intervene here, because I have already tried everything. That is the point. That is the spiritual milestone that opens the door. When a child of the Almighty hits the floor, on their knees, with no plan B, heaven moves. And that is where the surprise is born. Perhaps you are going through one of these 4 pains, and I will name them so you can recognize them. First pain, a son or daughter who has drifted away. It could have been due to the wrong path, wrong friendships, the rebellion of youth, a marriage that came too soon, the physical distance from another city or from Kentucky to New York City, or an old resentment that no one ever sat down to resolve properly. And you pray every day with their picture tucked away in the back of a drawer, waiting for a phone call that doesn't come. Second pain, a marriage that has become mere cohabitation. You sleep in the same bed, but you no longer look into each other's eyes. You don't fight anymore, and sometimes the silence hurts more than the fighting did. Third pain, an illness at home that has brought the whole family to a standstill. Someone who needs constant care, and you carry this burden without offloading it onto anyone for fear of looking weak. Fourth pain, an old promise from the Almighty that you received in a service, in a dream, in a prayer, and which you kept in your heart, only to watch time pass without it being fulfilled. You have already doubted this promise. You have already thought you misunderstood it. You have already almost laughed at yourself for ever having believed. If you recognized yourself in one of these 4 pains, pay very close attention to what comes next. The Almighty didn't bring you here to console you. You've had enough consolation. The Almighty brought you here to warn you. There is a giant difference between the Almighty who wipes away your tear and the Almighty who warns you that the tear is about to end. What is coming for your family is not a momentary relief. It is a turnaround. And a turnaround requires preparation. It requires open eyes. It requires a heart ready to receive without doubting. And it is here that I need to give you a quick reminder, because a turnaround requires spiritual preparation, and spiritual preparation requires knowledge. The digital book, How to Know If You Will Be Saved on Judgment Day, was written exactly for families like yours, who already feel the movement and cannot afford to misstep now. It is in the link in the description and at the top of the comments. If you want to protect your home, go there. The time is now, not tomorrow. Now listen carefully, because I am going to name the 4 signs that precede a surprise from the Almighty within a family, and you will recognize at least 2 of them happening to you this week. If you recognize 3, know that the process has already begun. If you recognize all 4, the blessing is but a few days away. Sign number 1, a dream that returns. I am not talking about just any dream. I am talking about that dream you had as a child, or that old desire you abandoned because life demanded too much, or that prayer you used to pray at the beginning of your faith and which later grew cold over time. Of nothing for no apparent reason, this desire returns. You begin to remember. You feel a strange longing, a peculiar urge to start over. This is the Almighty retying a thread that had been cut. He is giving you back what time had stolen. When this sign appears, understand, the surprise is being prepared. Sign number 2, a name that appears. Someone from your family, someone you haven't seen in a long time, someone who had been distant because of an argument, because of a busy life, because of geography, begins to be mentioned out of nowhere. A friend calls you talking about this person. You see their name somewhere random in an advertisement on social media, on a forgotten piece of paper. You dream about them. They cross your mind 3 times in a single day. It is not random. It is the Almighty aligning the pieces of restoration. That estrangement which seemed final is already being undone in the spiritual realm, even though you don't see anything with your natural eyes yet. Sign number 3, a strange peace. You cannot explain it, but suddenly you feel calm. In the middle of the storm, the overdue bills, the fear, the exhaustion, you close your eyes for 2 seconds and feel a peace that shouldn't be there. This peace is not yours. It did not come from you. It is the peace that the Almighty delivers before He acts. It is like a silent radio signal warning that the wave is about to arrive. Those who feel this peace and do not doubt it, do not waste it, are the ones who receive it first. Sign number 4. And this is the most important of all, an attack that intensifies. This is what confuses most people. They think that when the blessing is coming, everything becomes light, everything is resolved, everything calms down. And it is exactly the opposite. When the Almighty is about to release a surprise into your home, the enemy notices it before you do. He smells the manifestation. And so he intensifies everything. He increases the fighting at home over nothing. He increases the sickness. He increases the financial crisis. He increases the physical exhaustion. He increases the desire to give up. He increases the bad thoughts in your head. He does this because he knows that many people give up at the last kilometer. Many people throw in the towel on the eve of victory. If you are being attacked with an intensity you have never felt before, understand this now. The attack is the confirmation. The enemy does not waste ammunition on a target that isn't worth it. If he is firing everything at you, it is because the Almighty is about to do something great with your family. Now listen to what you cannot do in the coming days. Do not fight. Do not respond with anger. Do not make any big decisions on impulse. Do not speak ill of anyone inside your home. Do not complain out loud. Every word that comes out of your mouth carries spiritual weight. A bad word, spoken in a moment of anger inside your home, is a seed planted in the soil. It germinates, and you could unintentionally plant, on the eve of the turning point, a weed that chokes the blessing that was already on its way. Be careful with your mouth. Be careful with your reaction. Be careful with what you post on the internet. Be careful with what you say to a friend on the phone when the anger rises. The Almighty is watching your behavior now, in the midst of the attack, to decide the measure of the surprise. The more silence, prayer, and self-control you have during these days, the greater the size of what will come. And it is precisely because of this attack, this intensification you are feeling inside your home, that I need to reinforce one thing with you. The turning point requires you to keep your lamp lit. You cannot arrive at the eve of the miracle in the dark without understanding what the Almighty sees in your home, without knowing if you and yours are on the right side of the tally that the Almighty makes. That is why I prepared this powerful digital book for you. The book How to Know If You Will Be Saved on Judgment Day is a spiritual map that many have described as the turning point of their lives. It is in the link in the description, and at the top of the comments pinned right there. Do not scroll past it. Secure it now. Each day without this reading is one more day navigating in the dark, and the moment calls for clarity. If this message makes sense to you, write below, I will protect my home. The Almighty will read it. Now, let me tell you what the Almighty is waiting for you to do in silence, inside your home, without anyone knowing. Because most of the surprises from the Almighty are released in response to a secret gesture. It is not the public gesture that the Almighty rewards. It is the gesture that only He saw. And there are 5 attitudes that pull blessings into your home faster. 5 simple attitudes that anyone can do, but that only a minority actually practices. The first attitude is the whispered forgiveness. You don't need to forgive out loud. You don't need to send a message. You don't need to meet again. You don't need to make a scene. You need to go into your room, sit on the edge of the bed and whisper the name of the person who hurt you within your family, followed by the phrase, I release you. Just that. You don't even need to feel it. The feeling comes later. The act comes first. As long as you hold on to bitterness inside your home, you are holding with both hands the door through which the blessing needs to enter. Let go. Whisper. Release. The Almighty does the rest. The second attitude is care for the body. This surprises many people, but it is biblical. Your body is a temple. And before a great manifestation, the Almighty asks for something apparently trivial. Hydrate yourself. Eat well. Get what sleep you can. Take a few minutes of silence during the day. It seems silly, but when the body is weakened, the mind yields first, and faith is the second to fall. Many people lose their blessing on the eve of it because they collapsed physically before its arrival. Take care of yourself now, even if you are tired, even without the will, even thinking you don't have time. This is spiritual obedience, not vanity. The third attitude is the prayer of the house, a prayer made at the entrance of your house, at the door, with your hand on the doorframe, handing that residence over to the Almighty. No need for a beautiful formula. Say, this house belongs to the Lord. Everything that enters through this door passes through the scrutiny of the Lord. Everything that leaves through this door is blessed by the Lord. Do this when no one is watching, no audience, no photos, no posts, just you and the Almighty. A consecrated house is a house that attracts surprise faster. The fourth attitude is listening. You talk too much to the Almighty, and I am not reprimanding you. I am saying that the Almighty wants to speak back and you are not leaving room. Reserve 10 minutes a day, sit in a chair, turn off your cell phone, and simply listen. Do not speak, do not ask, do not pray with words. Just listen. At first you will think it is just silence. Then you will start to hear clear, wise, guiding thoughts. That is the Almighty. He speaks to those who create space. The fifth attitude is anticipated gratitude. Start thanking Him for what has not yet come. This is what the great men and women of the Bible always did. They praised before the sea parted. They praised before the walls fell. They praised before the rain arrived. Praise now. Give thanks for the restoration of your child before you see them changed. Give thanks for the healing before you see the clean test results. Give thanks for the reconciliation before the hug happens. This anticipated gratitude is like a signed check that activates the blessing in heaven before it descends to earth. If you do these 5 attitudes with consistency, even if it is with little faith, even if it is with doubt, even if it feels a bit sluggish at first, you will start to see the movement in less time than you imagine. The Almighty does not ask for great faith. The Almighty asks for consistent faith, and consistency in a short period weighs more than greatness in an isolated moment. Now I need to prepare you for how the surprise will arrive, because one of the reasons why many people do not recognize the blessing when it appears is because they have the wrong expectation. You imagine the surprise as fireworks, a movie scene, something scandalous, the phone ringing with bombshell news that changes everything in a second. And then the surprise comes, but it comes in another format, and you don't. Look, the Almighty almost never acts in the spectacle. The Almighty acts in the details. The surprise that comes for your family usually starts with something small, almost invisible, an unexpected message from someone you didn't expect, a strange invitation to a place you wouldn't normally go, a sudden tiredness that forces you to stop at a cafe and cross paths with someone who changes everything, a dream in the early hours, a sentence from a stranger on the bus, at the market, in line at the bank, a video that appears on your timeline without apparent logic, like this one you are watching right now. The Almighty opens the door just a crack, and it is up to you to recognize it, take advantage, and walk through. That is why, over the coming days, pay close attention to the small things. What seems like a coincidence is not. What seems random is not. If an old phone number rings, answer it. If a name pops into your head 3 times, call that person. If a dream wakes you in the dead of night with a clear feeling, write it down as soon as you open your eyes, before forgetfulness takes hold. If peace descends in the midst of confusion, obey that peace. The Almighty is warning you through 50 small signs instead of one big one. You think the Almighty is silent, but He has never been as loud in your life as He is now. It's just that you are used to hearing Him at a different volume, and now He is whispering to train your refined ear. And let me share a story with you that sums all this up. There is a woman I heard about. Her name is Evelyn. She lives in a small town in the countryside of Kentucky. She has been an evangelical for 32 years, married for 34. She had 2 children. The oldest drifted away from the family at 19, went to live in New York City to try his luck, entered a troubled marriage, and cut off contact with the family because of fights with his father. 12 years without speaking to his mother. 12 years she spent praying every day in front of the stove, with her hand on the wall, calling that son's name softly, almost in a whisper, so no one would hear. Evelyn reached a point where she almost stopped praying, not because she lost faith in the Almighty. She lost faith in seeing that son alive again. She accepted the idea of dying without embracing him. She accepted it, and it was precisely the day she accepted it that something happened. She was washing dishes, looked out the window and saw the mango tree in the yard swaying without any wind. She felt something strange rise in her chest, a peace, a strange peace. One of those kinds of peace I described earlier. She didn't even fully understand it. She went back to finishing the dishes. 3 days later, the phone rang. It was her son. He was crying on the other end. He said the marriage was over, that he was lost, and that he needed to come home. Evelyn opened the door. She didn't preach a sermon, didn't hold the 12 years against him, didn't ask for explanations. She just hugged him. And in that same month, 3 other things happened. Her husband, who had been away from the church for 8 years, returned on his own on a Wednesday night. Her sister, with whom she had fought over an inheritance a long time ago, called to apologize. And the test results for her little grandson, which had been problematic for months, came back clean. A surprise rarely comes alone. When the Almighty decides to restore a family, He restores in a cascade. One thing pulls another. One healing pulls another healing. One reconciliation pulls another reconciliation. One open door opens 3, 4 doors. You are not going to receive one surprise. You are going to receive a sequence. Prepare your heart for a sequence. But Evelyn mentions something important in this story. She says that if she had remained hardened, with bitterness in her chest, holding her son accountable for everything that happened when he arrived, she would have blocked it all. The door opened, and she had to walk through it. The Almighty opens the door, but you walk. The Almighty prepares the table, but you sit. The Almighty sends the surprise, but you receive it. Welcoming it is your responsibility. And then comes the question that is perhaps the most important in this entire video. Are you ready to receive a turnaround? Because a turnaround changes everything. It changes your routine. It changes your responsibilities. It changes what you do in the morning, in the afternoon, at night. It changes the dynamic of your entire home. It changes who enters and who leaves your life. When a prodigal son returns, you have to learn to deal with him as an adult, with the history he brings, with his wounds, with the lost time. When a marriage is restored, you have to relearn intimacy after years of silence. When a healing arrives, you have to rebuild the routine that had adapted to the illness. A blessing is not comfort. A blessing is a readjustment. Many people ask the Almighty for a turnaround because they romanticize the result, but when the turnaround arrives, they are frightened by the new work it brings. Prepare yourself mentally for this now. The Almighty will not give you a blessing that you will not know how to manage, and that is why He has strengthened you so much in these last difficult years. The pains you went through were not punishment. They were spiritual muscle building. The Almighty was training you to sustain what is coming. If you had received this surprise 10 years ago, you would not have had the structure to hold it. You would have ruined it. Now you have calluses, you have a thick skin, you have accumulated wisdom. Now you can handle it. That is why it is now, and not before. And there is one more point I need to raise with you, and this one is delicate. Not everyone in your family will react well to the surprise. There will be people envious of the restoration. There will be people who got used to the old format of your life and will not like the new one. There will be relatives who will get angry at the return of the prodigal son, like that story of the older brother in the parable of Luke. Prepare yourself for this as well. Your turnaround will reorganize all the relationships around you, and some relationships will need to fall so that others can be firmly established in the right place. Do not be afraid of this spiritual house cleaning. It is part of the process, and it is the Almighty clearing the ground for the blessing to land on solid earth. And let me tell you something that almost no one talks about, but it is decisive. There is a real danger in the post-blessing phase. It is forgetfulness. When the surprise arrives, when the son returns, when the medical exam comes back clean, when the marriage is restored, when the money comes in, there is a very strong human temptation to forget who made it all happen. You get so busy enjoying the blessing that you stop setting aside time to give thanks, to pray, to listen to the Almighty as you did before. And then, in 10 out of 10 cases, the blessing begins to slip through your fingers. It is not the Almighty taking it back. It is you opening your hand without realizing it. Make a pact now within yourself. If this surprise comes, and it will come, I will not forget. I will pray more afterward than I prayed before. I will testify to others. I will help other families who are still waiting. I will use this blessing as a platform to bless others. Make this pact now. The Almighty hears a pact. The Almighty honors a pact. A pact in the heart is a contract in heaven. And there is one last thing I need to warn you about. When this surprise begins to manifest, there will be a voice inside your head telling you to doubt. A voice saying it was luck, that it was a coincidence, that it has nothing to do with the Almighty, that you spent so much time asking that now that it has come, it is normal, it is the bare minimum, it is an obligation, it is the result of the natural law of things. This voice is not yours. This voice is the enemy trying to steal the joy of the manifestation. He does this because when you recognize the Almighty in the blessing deepens. And when you attribute the blessing to chance, it withers, it dilutes, it is lost in time. Do not let anyone or that voice take away your certainty of who it was. It was His will. It was His will. It was His will. Repeat this when the voice comes. Write it on a piece of paper if you need to. Stick it on the fridge. Fix it on the wall. It was His will. Now, take a deep breath, because I am going to pray a short prayer with you before I finish, and I want you to repeat it mentally with me, right there, wherever you are listening. Lord, I receive today the word that a long-awaited surprise is being prepared for my family. I commit to silence, to forgiveness, to the care of my body, to listening, to gratitude in advance. I will watch over the small things of the day. I will recognize the signs that come. I will receive without doubting. I will manage without forgetting who gave it to me. In the name of Jesus, amen. Keep this prayer. Write it on a piece of paper if you need to. Stick it on the refrigerator door. Repeat it every day this week. This prayer is the key that opens the door that has already been cleared for you in heaven. And let me give you one more reminder before the end, because there are people who need to hear it more than once to awaken. There will be a day this week when you wake up more tired than yesterday. There will be a day when your husband, your wife, your child will say something harsh to you early in the morning. There will be a day when the bad news arrives before the good. Do not retreat. Do not go back. Do not return word for word. Hold your ground. The final attack is always louder than the previous ones because it wants to appear bigger than it is. But it is only the last one. After it comes the silence of the Almighty that precedes the word. Then comes the word. Then comes the manifestation. In that order. If you keep this sequence in your heart, you will not be caught by surprise, and you will not give up on the eve of your breakthrough. And before you close this video, I need to be honest with you. If you have made it this far, heard everything, felt everything you felt, and this message has been echoing inside you since the first minute, understand that this does not end when the video ends. The Almighty did not bring you here for you to close your browser and go back to life as it was before. He brought you here to equip you for what is coming, and that is why I have prepared a powerful digital book for you. The book How to Know If You Will Be Saved on Judgment Day is the next step of this word you have just received. It answers the questions this video opened and goes much deeper, chapter by chapter, on how to shield your home and ensure your family is prepared not only for this surprise that is arriving, but for everything that comes after it. The link is pinned in the description of this video and also at the top of the comments. Run there now, while your heart is still open, while the word is still hot within you. If you are not subscribed to this channel yet, subscribe now and hit the bell icon, because the next word could be the confirmation of the one you just received. Like this video so it reaches other families from New York City to Kentucky who are going through the same silence as yours. And leave the word I receive in the comments to seal before the Almighty everything that was said here. The Almighty will see it, your family will feel it, and we will pray together for you. Go in peace, warrior. Go in peace, warrior. The surprise is on its way,